A mass program of coronavirus vaccination has begun in the United States. An intensive care nurse received the first injection in New York. Nearly 300,000 people have died from the virus in the US. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has highlighted movement in the post-Brexit talks, calling it good, but British officials say there's been no significant progress in recent days. Gunmen who kidnapped hundreds of schoolboys in Nigeria have made contact with the authorities. 333 boys are still unaccounted for after an attack on their boarding school on Friday. And users of several Google services say they became briefly unavailable around 12 GMT. Some were unable to sign into their accounts, but access has now been restored. Google said a problem hit its authentication system.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen promised to work to reach an agreement for Britain's withdrawal from the EU before the end of the year. All services from Alphabet Inc., the parent company of Google, were down for thousands of users around the world for 2 hours on Monday. The United States removes Sudan from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. And the American space agency NASA marks the 30th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope.
We begin with the coronavirus situation here in Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide says a popular program that subsidizes domestic travel will be halted nationwide during what's normally a busy time of the year.
The government will temporarily suspend go-to travel across the country from December 28th to January 11th in an effort to contain the spread of infections during the year-end and New Year holidays.
Suga also says Tokyo and Nagoya will both be excluded as destinations before that time. The announcement followed a government task force meeting on Monday evening. The cities of Osaka and Sapporo had already been excluded from the Go-To Travel campaign due to rising infections there. Suga says the government will expand financial support for doctors, nurses, and medical institutions dealing with the coronavirus. The government has called for greater efforts to combat the virus during what it says is a critical 3-week period to contain the spread of the virus. But the surge in cases shows no signs of abating. The country confirmed nearly 17,700 new cases and over 240 deaths in the week ending Sunday. Both are record highs. Nursing staff from the self-defense forces left on Monday for Osaka as the medical system there comes under strain. They're due to work there until December 28th. Officials in Tokyo and Osaka plan to extend local requests for bars and restaurants to shorten their operation hours to help stem the infections. Similar measures are also being considered in other parts of the nation. Now, an NHK opinion poll over the weekend shows more than half of respondents had a negative view of the government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. More than 1,200 people responded. Asked about the government's measures so far, 41% gave a positive assessment, while 56% had a negative view. The poll was conducted before the government announced the suspension of its Go-To Travel campaign. 12% of respondents said they supported an extension of the campaign, while 79% called for the program to be suspended. The approval rate for Prime Minister Suga's cabinet dropped to 42%, down 14 points from last month. The disapproval rate rose to 36%, up 17 points. Coronavirus vaccinations will be offered at no cost after government approval. Asked whether they want to be vaccinated, 50% said they do, while 36% said they do not. Now to the United States, where the first shipments of a coronavirus vaccine are en route to destinations across the nation. Workers at a factory of U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer in the state of Michigan have been loading the long-awaited cargo. The vaccines are in coolers that keep them under minus 70 degrees Celsius. The shipments are going out to about 140 locations. Officials say healthcare workers and elderly residents of care homes will be the first to receive their shots starting Monday.
We think as early as about 3 weeks from now, we can be delivering vaccines to all providers as directed by the states.
U.S. media speculate members of the White House and Congress are on a list to receive inoculations ahead of the public. On Friday, the Food and Drug Administration authorized the emergency use of the vaccine developed by Pfizer and its German partner, BioNTech. Hospitals across the U.S. are struggling with surging numbers of patients. The death toll is approaching 300,000. New Zealand and Australia plan to establish a two-way travel bubble in the first quarter of next year. The agreement would allow reciprocal movement between the nations without quarantine.
Officials have been working on a range of matters and good progress has been made. There has been some public focus on the requirement for 28 days free of community transmission, but that is just one of the criteria and areas where preparation needs to be done before opening.
Ardern said establishing the bubble will require coronavirus cases to stay low in both countries. New Zealand's international borders have been shut since March. In Australia, several state borders reopened to New Zealanders in October without the need for 14-day hotel quarantine. Australian Health Minister Greg Hunt said his government would absolutely approve a two-way bubble. He called it the first step on a return to international normality. A Malaysian rubber glove maker says an employee has died of COVID-19. Top Glove is the site of the country's largest active cluster, with over 5,000 workers testing positive in about a month. Malaysia is a major producer of medical gloves. Demand for the products has surged due to the pandemic. The firm says the 29-year-old Nepali died on Saturday due to pneumonia with lung fibrosis, and it will compensate his family. It's the first coronavirus death at the world's biggest latex glove manufacturer. Labor Department officials are investigating the firm for allegedly violating the workers' housing law. The government has ordered Top Glove to shut its factories in stages to assist with screening and quarantine. The company produces 90 billion rubber gloves annually, about a quarter of the global share. Demand has boomed since the start of the pandemic. The Chinese government has fined 2 domestic tech companies for alleged breaches of the anti-monopoly law. Beijing has been tightening its control over IT firms, expanding their influence. The government announced on Monday it had fined e-commerce giant Alibaba Group's investment firm and an affiliate of social media company Tencent Holdings about $76,000 each. It said the firms failed to seek approval before proceeding with some acquisitions. Chinese authorities say the punishment is a sign of greater scrutiny of monopolistic behavior by internet companies. Last month, the initial public offering of Alibaba's affiliate Ant Group, a mobile payment provider, was suspended following a meeting between Chinese regulators and company executives. The move derailed what was set to be the world's largest ever stock market debut. In other news, several U.S. media outlets say the U.S. Commerce Department and Treasury Department were targeted by hackers. An investigation is ongoing, but there are reports a group with links to the Russian government may be involved. The Commerce Department says investigators are looking into the breach. It's unclear what the attackers were trying to get, but there are reports internal emails were stolen over a period of several months. U.S. media say the National Security Council had held an emergency meeting on Saturday to discuss the matter. Russia's U.S. Embassy dismissed the media reports, describing them as unfounded attempts to blame Russia. Now to the latest on the Hayabusa 2 space probe. Scientists at Japan's space agency have opened the capsule it dropped to Earth earlier this month. Inside, they discovered blackish sand particles, which they believe are from a distant asteroid. Last year, Hayabusa 2 made 2 successful touchdowns on the Ryugu asteroid to collect samples. The probe released a capsule earlier this month as it passed by Earth before heading to another asteroid. Scientists later recovered it in an Australian desert. JAXA says the capsule was in perfect condition after spending 6 years in space and traveling more than 5 billion kilometers. It was then flown to Japan, where JAXA researchers started preparations to examine the contents. They announced on Monday they found a number of sand particles inside, which they believe were taken from the asteroid. Experts hope by analyzing those samples, they can find clues about how the solar system was formed, as well as the origin of water and life on Earth. The anime film Demon Slayer has become the second movie in Japanese film history to earn 30 billion yen. That's nearly $300 million. And it appears to be on track to take the top spot. The surprise hit comes as the nation continues to face a surge in coronavirus infections. The film's distributor, Toho, says more than 22 million people have seen it in theaters since its release in October. The work is on the verge of breaking the domestic box office record set by Spirited Away in the year 2001. That Oscar-winning classic took 253 days to reach the 30 billion yen milestone, while Demon Slayer made it in just 59 days. Demon Slayer is based on a popular manga series about a boy who fights demons to find a cure for his sister, who's been transformed into a demon herself. Next, in sports, competitive break dancers in Japan are welcoming the decision to add a sport called breaking to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Promising young Japanese athletes spoke about their Olympic aspirations.
Let's go! Oh! Yeah!
I am highly motivated to compete in the Paris Olympics. I am so happy.
The 18-year-old Nakarai won a bronze medal at the Youth Olympics in 2018. Yuasa Ami is a 22-year-old who won the World Breaking Championship last year.
Breaking has taught me many things, as I have met many people and experienced a lot. I'm happy that more people will know about breaking.